What's up, Gruntworks Nation? The Big Earl is always asking, why is China hoarding food? Experts say that China is hoarding a massive amount of food. They will soon have over two-thirds of the globe's corn reserves, over half of its rice, and over half of its wheat. But when asked about it, China lies. One China expert says they, of course, will never admit to something like that. Well, what does China know that we don't? When it comes to global food shortages, China is the canary in the coal mine. You see, China is the world's number one food importer. They rely on the rest of the world to keep their people fed. So they can't afford to mess up, or there will be riots, civil panic, or even worse, when over a billion people can't eat. What does this mean for Americans like you and me? Two words: food shortages. That's why it's a smart idea to stock up on a kit of best selling Four Patriots survival food. Create your own stockpile of the best selling Four Patriots survival food kits, hand packed in the USA. The kits are compact and stack easily. They have different delicious breakfasts, lunches, and dinners. And their 5-star reviews on the website rave about the flavor and the taste. Right now, you can get 10% off your first purchase of Four Patriots survival food by typing in the code VTTGW at checkout. Just go to 4patriots.com and use the code VTTGW to get 10% off your first purchase of Four Patriots survival food. That's 4patriots.com. Use the code VTTGW.
Hey, what is up, Mental Health Nation? Thanks for tuning in to the podcast. I'm super excited today. I talk about doing speaking events and this, that, and the other. And so I was very honored to go to Hampton-Sydney College and do a speaking event there. And so we're going to play a little bit of that today for the show. And then I'm going to introduce my guests that you see on the screen along with Lynn. But hey, before we dive into it, remember that the Mental Health Podcast is now available on Reads Across America Radio. It's super easy to find. You just download your favorite app, whether it's the TuneIn app, the Odyssey app, or the iHeartRadio app, and search for Reads Across America Radio. It does replay at Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and also Sunday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And with that, Lynn, I know you just made it back from Virginia, so you're back in warm Florida. So how you been doing?
Oh, gosh. I wish it was, when I came back, it was warm. So warm-ish compared to Virginia. It was like in the mid 60s. It was like 66. And then it went down today to 35. So we're at freezing temperatures, and I had to use my ice scraper out of my trunk. I got it. I never took it out of my trunk from my car when I left Oklahoma. So good thing I didn't, because I wasn't going to go in my garage and shuffle through things in the ice cold weather. And I was able to scrape off the window and all that stuff. But the funny thing is, this weekend we're going to have our temperatures back up to like 75.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
So typical Northeast Florida weather, which is great. I know the last time that we talked, I was talking about Irreverent Warriors, and so I did a hike in Tampa. Then right after I went to Virginia. So I just want to talk about the upcoming hikes. So this weekend we have Las Vegas for Irreverent Warriors, and I know our very own Monica and Linda are going to be there. And so I want to hope they have a great hike there. It's going to be Linda's first hike. And if you don't know about Irreverent Warriors, we bring veterans together to improve mental health and prevent veteran suicide using humor and camaraderie. And so we use this unconventional way of bringing veterans together through these hikes, and they're worldwide. And so we have 150 plus events, and the remaining events for this year is Vegas this weekend, Birmingham next weekend, Birmingham, Alabama, Key West on the 16th, and then Virgin Islands on the 30th.
Oh, nice.
So if that's cool. It's really cool. It's worldwide. They have them in Guam, Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, London, Paris, Germany, and over 150 plus cities. So the new hike season is going to be coming up. So be on the lookout for that. Probably after Martin Luther King weekend, it'll come out. So that's what I got.
Well, hey, that's awesome. What a great organization. I'm really, proud what you do with them and how you bring to the forefront, because what they do with veterans, and, nobody should suffer in silence, whether you're a veteran, whether you're a college student, or whoever you are. You should not suffer in silence. And you should always have that team or that group or that brotherhood or sisterhood around you. And with that, I'm going to have Renee and then Amanda, then Scott. Please introduce yourself to the audience and tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do. And then we're going to jump right into this speaking event.
Thanks, Cliff. It's such an honor to be here and with all of you out there. I am the Associate Dean of Students for Student Development and Wellbeing at the college where Cliff spoke the week before Thanksgiving. Hampton-Sydney College is a small, private, all-male college. We have, I'd say our greatest health risk is substance misuse, addiction, things in that nature. So I've been here 15 years at the college. I have a master's in substance abuse counseling. I used to practice, but I don't anymore. Just so thankful that Cliff's son goes here and that I was able to bring Cliff to campus. So many students have shared with me that hearing from him, like you said, Cliff, it's just nice to know you're not the only one out there who might be having who might be struggling. So I'm just here today to support all of us because we're all in this thing together, and I'm grateful to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you very much. And Amanda, I know you attended, even though Hampton-Sydney is an all-male college, you were there with two of your friends. Thank you for bringing them. It was good. I think you guys sat in the back on the couch, right? If I remember right. I couldn't remember exactly what you said.
Yep.
But hey, tell us a little bit about you. Where do you go to school at and what you doing?
Yeah, hi. So I'm Amanda. I got the honor of attending the talk over at Hampton-Sydney. I actually am a graduate student down the road at Longwood University.
Very nice.
I'm getting my degree in mental health counseling. So
nice.
I am completing my internship over at Sydney, working really closely with Renee. And the two friends I brought with me are two other grad students working at Longwood, and someone else is working within the town of Farmville. But we loved getting to be there. We literally talked about it the entire 15-minute ride home. But yeah, I am just super thankful that I'm in this internship right now, and it's giving me opportunities to connect and see things like this.
Well, thank you for what you getting your degree, and it's very much needed, and there's such a huge shortage out there of mental health professionals. So thank you for that selfless sacrifice to go and have that degree. Well, it truly is, because they don't get paid a lot of money. They get paid more than what they do. But so I really appreciate that, and I appreciate your kind words. But last but not least, Scott, tell us what you're doing, man.
My name's Scott Coker. I'm a student here at Hampton-Sydney. I'm a sophomore. I'm a psychology major with a minor in pre-law. I want to be a lawyer. But yeah, I'm very thankful to be here.
Well, thanks a lot, Scott. You also attended the speaking event, so thank you for coming.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I mean, I could relate it much to my life. So that's and I read your book, and it really I could relate a lot of my struggles to yours.
Well, that's great, and we'll jump into that. So hey, just so the audience, so they know what we're talking about, we're gonna go ahead and shrink our little screens here. You'll still see us. We're gonna bring up the speaking event. We're gonna play it, and then we'll pause it throughout and discussion about it.
I'm assuming that other than the slightly older people in the background, none of you were born on September 2001, on September 11th, 2001? You guys were that, but you learned about it in school, right? And what I'm going to tell you is firsthand account of what happened to me that day, and then what happened a year later that led up to my suicide attempt. So I was working in Crystal City at the time at JP1, that was the name of the building. They were renovating the Pentagon at that time, and so there was space there, and they had moved us out into a office building outside of the Pentagon, about 4 blocks away. Planes hit the World Trade Center. My boss was 10 minutes late coming into work that day. Had he been on time, I wouldn't be standing here. Because where my swing space was, I was in the J6, which is IT, and we were supposed to go there and hook up the telecommunication systems for the generals. It was right where the plane hit. So the fact that he was 10 minutes late saved my life, and he was never late to work ever. While we was en route to do work, that's when the plane hit the Pentagon. The younger gentleman that was with me, I sent him back to the building, and I moved forward to help with first responders for about 6 hours with the initial, after the plane hit. After about 6 hours, I was command directed to go back to my office building. While I was at my office building, I picked up the phone and called a friend of mine, Bob. Bob worked for AT&T. He had come up with an idea of using a spectrum analyzer to pick up cell phone frequencies, because cell phones operate in a certain frequency. And so we went back down the morning of the 12th, back down to the Pentagon. And it was from there that I spent the next 18 hours crawling through the Pentagon looking for victims of that attack. And I'm gonna say it right now because I'm sure you guys have seen the conspiracy theories on the Pentagon where there was a missile that hit the Pentagon. It wasn't a plane. I'm gonna tell you right now, it was a plane because I crawled over a hell of a lot of plane parts in my search there. One things that we would do, we went up to the Pentagon. I don't know, has anybody ever been to the Pentagon? You guys how the Pentagon's laid out? So you have the different rings. So you have, it starts in the middle, which is C ring, and then it works its way out. You got D, E, and F. That's where the plane hit. It actually went all the way through those 3 rings. There's a space in C ring where they can drive vehicles around, and then B ring, and actually blew the doors out in B ring. Because what happened, the plane was so loaded with fuel, when it came in and hit the Pentagon, the nose detached and acted like a missile and shot through there. And so that's why you see the half circle in the front of the Pentagon in the pictures of it. And so what we were doing is we would work our way through the Pentagon. We would get a signal. I was not married at that time. I didn't have no children. Bob did. We would get a signal. I would enter into the building and where we got the signal from the cell phone, and I would retrieve it. We did not find anybody that was alive. Everybody that we found has deceased or died during the attack. We recovered cell phones where the battery had completely melted through the phone, but was still emitting a signal when I recovered that cell phone, which is pretty amazing, actually. So as I'm going through the Pentagon, what do you think I'm seeing? I'm seeing pieces and parts. I'm not going to go into great detail, but of the plane accident. And a lot of things got thrown out when that plane hit into the corridor. And I had been there for about, 8 hours, and I talk about this in my book. And I had got kind of desensitized to things because I'm crawling over a lot of things, and by things you can use your imagination, pieces of people. And I remember I just came out, we just got a signal, I just crawled out, and a lady's purse was laying in water. And she was one of the people on the plane. And I picked it up out of the water and I set it up because in my mind, I wanted to save something for the family, right? When I did that, 2 FBI agents in very clean suits, now mind you, I've been here for 12 hours already, started yelling at me because I was disturbing a crime scene. I completely went off on them and started yelling at them because in my mind, you haven't been doing what I'm doing. And they just turned around and went away. And so if you ever saw, you remember when they have you seen videos of them dropping the flag off the side of the Pentagon on the 12th of September? If you saw a scanned out video of that, you'll see 2 guys standing on the big beam that collapsed. That was Bob and I. We knew the president was coming down. We didn't stop working. We continued searching. We just got a signal, and I just went in to retrieve that when they dropped the flag. We just heard the cheering. We didn't know what was going on until later. And so we finished that. It was not until early morning of the 13th that I finally went home and I was able to contact my family. So from September 12th or 11th when the accident happened until the 13th, my family had no idea I was alive. Because nobody could contact me because the cell phones weren't like they were today. And so I go home, I take off my hat, boots, and gloves that I wore, and for some reason, and I don't know what that reason is to this day, I put them in a box. Then I took my uniform off and I washed it. And then I got into the shower. As I'm in the shower is the first time that I broke down because of everything that I saw and did. And it was from that time forward, I started having dreams about what I saw. Those dreams gave me nightmares. Those nightmares put me on a path of drinking. And so I started drinking at night so I wouldn't remember my dreams. Well, when you're drinking that much, still in the military, as an officer, because I was born officer, my attitude at work changed. And so I'm no longer the happy-go-lucky guy. I'm the guy that no longer goes down and has lunch with my work buddies, my soldiers, my friends. I sit at my desk. And I have my lunch at my desk so I can take a nap because I'm tired because I was up late drinking and I was hiding it. And so it was those changes that people saw in me. Well, the military was a little bit different back in 2002. This is 2002. Is in the military back then, if you were having mental health issues, they put you on orders for 60 days and then they chaptered you out of the military. Now, I was very lucky that my commander supported me in getting help. But when I was command directed into counseling, when they say, hey, you're going to counseling, go. What do you think I did when I was in counseling? Do you think I was honest with my counselor? No. I lied to him because all I wanted to do was get that check mark so I could go back and become a soldier, because that's all I've ever wanted to be my whole entire life. Because of that, and now that I know that people at work notice me differently, then I had to start to hide things more, right? Fast forward. It's December 20th, 2000, well, let's back up a minute. On the 1-year anniversary of 9/11, they ran an article, I don't remember which newspaper it was, and they had pictures of the victims from the attack on the Pentagon. One of the ladies that was pictured, she had a 10-year-old son, and I had crawled over half her body in the Pentagon. That accelerated my downward spiral, because now that's all I was consumed with in my mind thinking. I didn't talk to nobody about it. I didn't, even if I wanted to talk to somebody about it, I wasn't gonna talk to my counselor about it, because then, I'm gonna go back into a more detailed therapy session or something. I didn't wanna do that, I just wanna get that stamp. And so from that time until December, my path went down very quickly. I was home on leave. I'd actually gone to anti-terrorism training there at Fort Leavenworth. I was at my brother's house in Kansas City. I don't know what triggered me that. Anybody in here psych students? Got psychology class? Okay. I don't know what triggered me that night, but they call it a coupling effect. I don't know if you guys learned that in your class. When everything, for whatever reason, all comes together and you no longer want to live. I don't know what that trigger for me that night was. My brother had a gun in his house. I looked for it. I couldn't find it. But I was medicated from the military, so I had sleeping pills. So I took a bottle of sleeping pills and wrote a note. And I get asked this, and I want to be very honest with you guys right now. I get asked this a lot. What did I think at that moment that I knew I was not going to live no more? Sadly, in my mind at that moment, probably because of the sleeping medication, I felt peace. And I'm going to explain to you why I felt that. One, I was dealing with the stress of me not understanding what I was going through. Two, I was dealing with the stress of work and trying to save my military career. Three, I had the stress of my family, because my family knew something was wrong with me. I'm 1,200 miles away. They didn't know how to help me. And so I got tired of that. And so for whatever reason or whatever clicked in my mind, I was drinking alcohol or whatever, I laid on the couch and closed my eyes. My older brother, who was a nurse at Truman Medical Center about a mile away, got a funny feeling at work. And he called, and I didn't answer. He rushed home and found me unconscious, and then took me to the hospital, and then I saved my life.
Hey, Chris.
People ask me, after your attempt.
So hey, there we go. Now we're back on. I wanted to pause there because Amanda, with what you're going through, with your training, and then Scott and Renee, I just kind of wanted to see, and then you can chime in too, what you thought about when I talked about my suicide attempt and what I was thinking about, to finally get to that point to where, I wanted to attempt my life. I'd be just curious to get your perspective on that. Anybody, just chime in or start talking.
Well, basically, I kind of perceived it as, you saw things that, not me or Renee or Amanda would see, like, every day, day to day.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like, not, I mean, everyone doesn't see that throughout their entire lives. And it's very scarring to see people dismembered. Or, I mean, that's kind of what you were referring to.
Mhm.
I couldn't even imagine it. And I mean, like going through something like that, you see that with a lot of people with PTSD and every disorder that comes with war. Like, because it is basically war. I mean, it was very, very profound to me, like very deep. I mean, I feel like it was very deep rooted in your head. As you later on, you explained how like the dreams kept coming back and back because it was so rooted inside your head.
Mhm.
That's how how I perceived it.
Amanda, I want to get your take on it.
I kind of keep thinking about how you walked us through like how you were feeling like after you took all the pills and just that kind of like peaceful feeling, and I've been thinking about that a lot. And I mean, I'm with Scott, like for sure with like PTSD, and like you're seeing things that are obviously not like what everyday people are going to be seeing, and then also going back to like the dreams kept coming. It's just you being able to like tell your experiences and like kind of portray it in such a way is just absolutely fascinating to me. And I am really just, I don't even have the word for it. Just I'm like conceptualizing it like all again, kind of rewatching this. But I mean, it's powerful at the end of the day, and I think where you were at that point was you saw that as like your only option, and so it's a lot to think about.
Yeah, I'm and Renee, I want to have you chime in here in a second.
Yeah, you're good.
It's I have to speak that way, right? Because what we have to do, and you're going to find this out when you move further on in your career, it's you're going to have to learn how to build that trust very quickly. When you're seeing patients and talking with patients, because if you don't have that trust, then it makes it harder for you to treat them. And that's one thing I wanted to present is, lying to your therapist isn't going to help you. If in the end run, it hurt me and it almost cost me my life. And I will tell you, like I said in the speaking event, my therapist was infuriated with me because he realized that I was now lying, and he'd been in the business for a long time, that I was lying to him. So, but hey, Renee, what do you want to say?
Yeah, you asked us, Amanda and I, as professionals, what we noticed coming up for us when you shared your suicide attempt. So I have thoughts on that, but don't let me forget, because I also have thoughts on what you're saying regarding seeing a counselor, because I did counseling for years. And but on the hearing your story, and like Amanda and Scott, hearing it again it's really powerful. The fact that you felt peace did not surprise me. So even that night when you said it and hearing it again, like you were like, people asked me what I was feeling, and you felt peace, because I can relate to that. I have definitely had thoughts of, man, I'm tired of the stress. I'm tired of the stress of living my life. Somewhere in my 40s, mid 40s, in my 20s, I had these occasions where I thought, I could handle that. Like I would just go to sleep, and then I wouldn't have to deal with all the shit that I had to deal with. So I was not surprised, Cliff, to hear you say that night when you were talking to the guys. The stress of living with not understanding what was going on with you, the stress of your family misunderstanding, that piece that hit home, man. Like I can relate to you wanting to feel that sense of peace and why you did. I am glad that you did not find the gun. Like I'm like reminded that, and the fact that you wrote a note. I think I missed that when you were talking, because I was kind of in the back and I didn't realize that you wrote a note.
Yeah, I actually wrote it on a napkin with a pen. It was just very
Did you?
short. Yeah.
Did you?
It said,
Huh.
let me think here for a second. I'm tired of living with the guilt and not finding anybody alive, and I love you all. That was it.
Interesting. My sister-in-law died by suicide at 47, and she wrote a note and she took pills. So he's also bringing back, my love for her and where she may have been that night. And then lastly, I don't want to forget to bring this up because it's so big and it really hits home for what I do every day, talking to students who are, in distress, is that lying to counselors. When you said that night, I was like, oh my God, that's so well put. That's what I run into a lot with the students. I'm working at an all-male school, and something you didn't talk about that night much was the stigma of men asking for help. So I know a lot of guys, they'll go over to the counseling center and they'll see a counselor, but they don't want to go back, or just talking about just a student today who is not doing well in school. He's kind of caught up in an avoidance cycle and paralyzed in a sense of depression. He said he would not go talk to a counselor because his dad never would. His dad is currently battling cancer, but that's his heart and soul, and that's what he's seen. That's what he's been taught to do.
Renee, you mind if I jump in real quick?
Oh yeah, totally. I thought you were talking to Cliff. Sorry, dude.
No, Mr. Bauman. So would you say you not wanting to tell anyone and you talking to your lawyer, would you say that kind of fell into a role of masculinity? The whole idea of every man lives in quiet desperation, and the whole thing of I'm dealing with this on my own. I don't need anyone else's help. Was that part of it, would you say?
Oh yeah, and later on we'll start the video back up again, but later on I do talk about that, the fact that I grew up on a farm and we never talked about our problems, and
exactly, you built your supposed to be emotional.
Being an alpha male that I am I remember
that's
how I am, and yeah, to sit there and tell somebody about in my mind that made me weak. It made me less of a person, less of a man.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to have those conversations.
Exactly.
And in the end run, yeah, go ahead, Lynn.
Right. Well, I kind of wanted to jump in also. Not only is it masculinity in the military, because I'm a veteran myself.
Yeah.
In the military, it is a masculine kind of world.
Yeah, it's a masculine environment.
If you show any kind of emotion or show that you're hurt, it's weakness. Yeah. And people will play on that. And like Cliff said in his in the video, that he would get chaptered out. That means kicked out, pretty much. You get kicked out of the military. You get your DD-214, which is a release paperwork, and you don't want to risk your career. So back in those days, you're really ostracized for having feelings and emotions, and you're here to fight the fight. You're here to
you're here to win the war.
You're not here to talk about your feelings.
Yeah.
So that is a big part of it as well.
All right.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you.
And Renee, go back to what you were saying about the student whose father has cancer, and you were mid sentence, so
I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, Scott, you're okay. I'm used to this. I'll keep everybody's conversation going, no problem.
I know he's no, I don't have anything else to say.
Oh,
I was just a lot there for him, and he wasn't going to consider talking to me about his feelings.
But that's hard, and that's one of the things. And we'll go ahead and hear Chris in a second. We'll start the video, but it's tough. And when I talk about this in video, if you brought issues before you came to college, it's only going to become worse as you start unpacking those issues. I'm in the speaking event. So thanks, Chris.
What was your turning moment to realize you needed to go a different path in your recovery? And I say this: when you attempt suicide, they put you in a state-run mental health ward at the hospital for at least 3 days so they can evaluate you. What I saw when I was there, I'm in a robe, no clothes, sleeping on the floor, being evaluated, and I'm in a locked room with a whole bunch of other people. Their problems are way worse than mine. And I say that all the time. Spending that 3 days in that environment probably saved my life, because then I realized this ain't working. What I'm doing's not working. It's not. And so when I was finally released from the hospital, I have to drive from Kansas City, Missouri back to Virginia, Washington, D.C. It's about 1,236 miles. It was on that drive that I decided I was no longer going to worry about my military career, that I was going to go back into counseling and be honest with my counselor. And that's very hard because counselors can only treat you if you're honest with them, right? And he was very mad at me. He was agitated because now, obviously, the hospital had contacted him. He knew now I attempted my life. And then he had to go back and think, well, what did I miss when I was talking to him? Different time then. But I had to realize that I was important. I had to realize that what I was feeling was normal. I had to realize that even though I had those thoughts and feelings, I had to learn how to talk about it. I'm a very alpha male. I'm a very outgoing person. I grew up on a farm. My father never talked about his feelings, right? I didn't know how to do that. I had to learn that behavior, and it wasn't easy, it was hard. And to learn that and to be able to talk about it is tough, right? Got a lot of good guys in here, a lot of tough guys. How hard is it for you to truly talk about your problems with your friends? It's hard. It's not easy. It's tough. Or what do you do if your buddy is having issues? They may not be suicidal. Maybe you guys are coming up on crunch time at school, right? The semester's almost over with. Maybe your grades aren't as good as they are. You guys are going home. You know, maybe your parents might be a little upset with you because it's not where it needs to be. And you're feeling the stress of it. And how are you handling that stress? I'm not stupid. I went to college. I wrestled in college. I got it. Maybe you're drinking a little bit more because you're trying to deal with the stress of it. Maybe you're doing a little marijuana, THC. Maybe doing it to compensate the stress of what you're going through because now you're going to have to face something when you go back home. And then what's going on there? And so as I'm going through my recovery and I sit down and I tell my story truthfully, it just felt like a big weight being lifted off my chest when I told why I felt the way I was feeling, the nightmares I was having, and why I was having those nightmares. You know, when you have PTSD, triggers, and anybody can have PTSD, you don't have to be military related, doesn't have to be related. You could be driving to work or coming to school and come across a car accident and see things that your mind's not used to seeing, and it could do it. You could have childhood trauma. You could have all kinds of things. But when you have PTSD, psych students, have you guys talked about PTSD in your class at all? Okay. So PTSD is when, like for me, being deployed to Iraq and certain things will trigger me, right? And so when I get hit with a trigger, it's like the most vivid dream you ever had in your life. And that thought comes back to me just like it happened that day. And then so if you're already in a stressful situation, how do you deal with that? Alcohol didn't fix my problem. Alcohol made it worse. I've never done THC, but I'm sure that's not gonna help it either. It's just gonna put a temporary patch on it. And so what I had to learn to do is to talk. They preached about the brotherhood here, do they not? Right? In the military, we teach the same thing because I'm gonna be in the foxhole with that person at some point in time, and you may have to save my life. And so I need to know who you are, how you are, but also value your life. And so if you are going and maybe your friend is acting a little bit different, do you ask them if they're okay? I say this all the time. It's okay not to be okay. 99.9% of the time, I'm a fun guy and you want to hang out and have drinks with me. But there are some days, well, I'm not that guy. Something would happen, I'm a little stressed, you know, maybe Junior's not getting the grades he needs to get in school. He gets good grades, but I'm just saying. So anything can be stressful. And then how do you deal with that? What do you do to keep yourself from being so stressed? Do you go for a walk? Do you play video games? I love video games. I'm gonna tell you a funny story about video games. My father, and he passed away 4 years ago. He was 74 when he passed away. He was the biggest gamer you've ever saw in your life for an older man. So we had PS4s at the time. We have PS5s now. Matter of fact, Junior still has a PS4 that his grandfather played with. My dad, Junior's grandfather, literally had apps on his phone to change the weapons when he was playing. He played Call of Duty, Destiny. He played them all, and he was very good. My father even went and had cataract surgery done so he could see the TV better to play the game because he was missing too much, right? But what a great connection to have with Junior for them to be on the headset and playing. And I always thought it was so funny because he's playing Call of Duty, right? Or Fortnite, right? You probably play Fortnite, and they're running around doing stuff. How many of his friends online knew they were playing with a 70-year-old man and he was beating them? How funny is that? But what a great connection to have. And so video games can be a great way to release, right? Social media gets a bad rap. I think social media is a good thing. I think that you can reach out and talk to people on social media if you're having a problem. That's good. One thing I like for you guys to do, if you have your phones, I like for everyone to take their phone out, go to your app store. I'm going to tell you about the best mental health app I've ever found in my life, and you can choose to download it or not. It's called EarKick, EARKICK. That is the best mental health app I've ever found. Now, what's great about it is you can journal by texting, you can journal by emojis. There's many different ways you can journal. Well, there's a little panda there that's AI. The person who developed this app has been on my podcast twice. She's from Switzerland. EarKick, EARKICK. EarKick, kick. And so what's nice about that is, let's say you're like, oh man, EarKick. All right, let's see here. Did really bad on my test. I need to study more, change what I do, right? You put that in there. The little panda will remember that, and it'll ask you a week later, how are you doing with your schedule? Or how are you doing with this? It's a very interactive app, and it works very well. I journal in it every day. One thing that it does do, it tracks your anxiety. It tracks all kinds of things, and nobody sees it. It's all on you guys. Nobody tracks it. Nobody sees your data. But it tracks weather patterns. It tracks temperatures and all those things, because there's certain times of the year where people get more depressed and not, right? And so it's a good app. I encourage all of you to use it. I encourage for you to share it with your friends. It's kid-friendly to adults. And it's a really great, awesome app. I know you can pay for some features, but don't pay for anything. Just use a free app, because that's what I use, and it works absolutely fine. But, guys see my t-shirt? This is a highest selling t-shirt. You guys understand what it means? You understand what not being a triggered pansy means? So in life, you always have those little triggers. Sometimes people get too caught up in little triggers that shouldn't affect them. That's what this shirt means. So quit allowing things that are out of your control to control your life, right? There's only one thing in this world that we have full control over. You guys know what it is? Huh? Yourselves, your mind. But yet we allow our minds to control us. You get anxiety like, oh, well, I got this hurt, or I got this, or I got that. And then it takes you down a road. When you start going down that road, how do you stop that path? Maybe it's talking to the panda on EarKick, because you can chat with it now. That's a new upgrade they did to it. Maybe it's talking with your buddies or your friends, or finding I need to do something different because what I am doing now isn't working. I went to a doctor one time, and I was talking with him, and he says, so how many drinks do you have a day? Of course I lied, because everybody lies. 4. I have 4 drinks. It was probably 6. I have 4. And he said, oh, okay. He says, how about instead of 4 drinks or 6 drinks, you just drink 1 less? Can you do that? I'm like, yeah, sure, I could do that. Yeah. So I go home, and instead of having 6 drinks, I had 5. A year later, I went back for another physical, same doctor. You know what he said? Instead of having 5 drinks a night, why don't you have 4? Because sometimes I think if you're already in a high-pressured area, you try to set too many big goals, and once you fail the big goal, everything goes to shit, right? I like to set little winnable goals, because to me, first thing I do when I get up in the morning, I make my bed. You know why? Well, the military made me, but I get the first win of the day. My first task has just got completed because I made the bed. I have already set my path to have a good day because I made my bed. Maybe it's getting up having breakfast. Maybe it's getting up and going and working out. You know, one thing that I do is, what you guys don't know, because I didn't talk about my service in Iraq, is I have a TBI, traumatic brain injury. Because of my traumatic brain injury, I have ADHD, and that's been a process for me. So sometimes I'll have a thought, and I'm surprised I haven't lost it today, but it'll just go away, and I have to, they taught me how to get those thoughts back. So when I was dealing with that and everything else, it becomes very stressful. So I had to learn how to get little wins. So this is one thing. I was a master resiliency trainer in the military. So this is one thing when I was at University of Pennsylvania, training technique they taught us, and it works very well, and you guys can look this up, your psych students, is we called it hunt the good stuff. So every night before you go to bed, I don't care how crappy your day was, I guarantee you 3 good things happened that day. Write them down, journal them, or whatever. Think about it before you go to sleep. I made the bed. That's one. I got to come down there in Hampton, Sydney, and I got to spend time with my son because he never calls now he's down here at school because dad doesn't matter anymore, right? So I got to spend time with him. We went for a hike. That's number 2, right? And then number 3, and you think about that before you got to bed, because I'm lucky because I got to talk to you guys tonight. And guys and gals, and sorry, I just mean it as fluid, so don't be offended. That's 3 wins. And so before you go to bed, think about that. Now, why would you want to think about that? If you had your mind so set with negative thoughts, by thinking of 3 good thoughts prior to going to bed, you set your mind up in a different state before you go to sleep. And so that's another thing you do, hunt the good stuff. So, for all the students here at Hampton City, what do you do to de-stress yourself? What's some of the things you guys do here to de-stress yourself? Because I don't know, I don't go to school here. What's one of the things you guys do? Come on. Yeah.
I play guitar.
Okay, awesome. Guitar. Who else? What? Yeah, let's talk out loud.
I listen to music.
Music? That's a great, I love listening to music. Matter of fact, I listened to about 20 songs before I came here. Yeah, go ahead, you in the back. Exercise, that's good. Yeah. You guys play video games, right? I'm sure. Yeah.
Reading like books for fun.
Yeah, that's great. So when you're feeling really stressed, are those things that you go and do to help relieve stress? What do you do to relieve stress? What do you do if you got a bad test or on that grade or at school? Or better yet, what happened if you drink too much? Weekend's coming up and you all hung over, right? And maybe while you're drinking too much and you've not done too well on a test, your girlfriend decides to break up with you. That's a pretty crappy weekend, isn't it? Now, how do you deal with that stress? How do you not internalize that? Got to find a way. Gentleman back there that came and talked, Clarence, he'll help you with that. If you can't do it yourself. I say this all the time. Don't be like Cliff Bauman, because Cliff Bauman wasn't strong enough to ask for help. I didn't know how to even, I can't formulate my mind. I talked about this on my podcast a couple weeks ago. Is that night when I took those pills, why didn't I call somebody? To be honest with you, I didn't know who I would call. Because I didn't want to call my family. I was hiding things from them. I didn't want to call anybody from work because I was hiding it from them. I don't know. I didn't know anybody to call. And so one of the things I said on my podcast is, find that buddy. We all have that one buddy that you can talk to anything about. Put them in your phone. Mark them favorite, not whatever, and have a conversation with them so they know. Say, hey, look, maybe I'm fine now, nothing's going on. But if I just have a really messed up day or bad week and I want to talk to you and I'm not in a good mindset, I may call you, and is that okay? The reason I say that, I was doing a speaking event a couple weeks ago, and a person came up to me, and somebody in his circle had completed suicide. That person had called him, and he didn't answer the phone because it was at night. His phone was on silence, and if they're not marked to able to receive that call, or they don't call 3 times, it wasn't that he wouldn't answer the phone, he didn't know he got the call. I say this, if you are in that state of mind and you call your buddy and they don't answer, please to God, do not take that as a sign. that you need to finish what you started. Call them back at least 2 other times or 3 times because their phone could be on silence, and that could be why. So don't take that as a sign. As somebody who shouldn't be standing here, that went down that path, find that buddy, find that friend, and have a real conversation with them and said, hey, let's talk. If I'm in that state of mind, I might call you. And then make sure that he knows that, so then maybe he can program his phone to receive that phone call. You know, you guys are very close here, I know that. The teachers and the professors, they all get to know you in this school. You're very lucky. But if you notice somebody who's just being off, ask them, right? What do they teach you how to greet people at Hampton Sydney, right? They teach you all how to greet people when you're out walking around and whatever. If you see the same person a couple of days in a row, and maybe today he's like this, and he says, oh yeah. He didn't really get back to you, right? Or if you see somebody in the chow hall, where you guys eat at, maybe he's sitting by himself now and not by his friends. Maybe you pick up and go sit down with him and make sure he's doing okay. At work, I was always the guy that said good morning to everybody, right? Because I did that to see how my workmates were doing, especially after my suicide attempt. And then when I started doing what I'm doing now, going out and traveling all over the world doing speaking events, because I want to gauge how you're doing, right? And so if you say, oh, yeah, good morning, well, I had a bad day, you know, Northern DC, traffic's always bad, right? There's always something going on. And so I have that conversation, that interaction, because it's very important. And I think nowadays, your generation, different from mine, you guys communicate differently, right? You guys text, you communicate on social media, you do TikTok. You communicate differently from me, but that doesn't make it wrong. It just makes it different. You know, when I'm talking to military leaders, they always say, well, we need to talk more, we need more personal communication, we need this. I said, no. You need to learn how to communicate with the different generations, because I'm sure that the generation before me thought the way we communicated was whack. And so you have to learn how to do that. And so if you're looking at your friend's social media post and they go sideways a little bit, will you reach out to them? Will you message them and say, hey, I saw this. Are you okay? And I'll tell you a quick story. I grew up in a small town in War, Missouri of 6,000.
So we got about 5 more minutes. We're gonna wrap this up, and just so you guys know, I will post probably tomorrow the whole speaking event out on my social media, so you can watch the whole thing. But I do go into a story about a friend of mine that had made a post on Facebook where he was attempting his life, and we were able to locate him and talk him out of the truck. But you know, what I would like to do is just kind of, as we finish up here, is just kind of go around the horn, and Scott and Renee and Amanda, and really get what your take is, you know, when I talked about, you know, being accountable, when I talk about maybe drinking a little bit less, or when I talk about, you know, talking to your classmates or to your friends just to see how they are. Because sometimes we get caught up in our own little worlds and we forget to do that. And sometimes a kind word can go a long way. So if you mind, I don't care what order you go into. Just tell me what you guys think about that. Renee.
Renee, would you like to go first?
Oh, go ahead, Scott.
Oh, okay. So I mean, at Hampton Sydney, I don't really have to worry about people not really being there for me. Like, we are a brotherhood, and they say that we are a brotherhood. We are a brotherhood. I mean, no matter who I go to and no matter who I talk to, they're there for me no matter what. But in the regard of, like, I mean, I've seen, like, from other people, like, I don't know, let's say they get a bad grade on a test or whatever. There's going to be other guys holding them accountable not to, like, be even more of a degenerate, if you know what I mean. But yeah, I mean, here we don't really have to worry about, like, people really not being there for you. People are always here for you here. Like, even through my darkest times, I've had people who I don't even know who they are come up to me and, like, help me through things that I didn't think I could go through myself. And along with that, like, my advice for, like, I mean, if something goes wrong, is working out. But the second thing is talking to a close friend. And I have many here, and all of them are brothers. So That's kind of how I look at what you said.
Yeah, thanks, Scott, for sharing that. Means
No
a lot.
problem. Yep.
Amanda, give us your take on that. Being with it, what your degree's in, and when you are, talking with your friends, or maybe you guys are stressed out, or as you guys were having that conversation driving back to Longwood from Farmville that night, and kind of reflecting on what you've learned in school.
I think that I obviously cannot relate in like that brotherhood aspect that y'all get at like Hampton City and like the military, but I think we have a unique thing, even just like studying mental health and just being like more hyper aware of the people I'm close with and like just people around me. I think I mean having those tough conversations is important, and I'm in such a world where it's so like normalized that it like with my friend group and like with people I hang out with, it's like normal conversation for us. Um, and so being able to like pick up on it has just been something that I've luckily been able to start to learn how to do, and it's been absolutely phenomenal. Um, and then that kind of goes in hand with starting to reach out to people that I may not have ever really thought anything of. And there's like I have one friend who I haven't spoken to much since high school, and I like ran into her on campus, and I texted her a little while, a couple days after that, and I was like, hey, like I didn't know if it was like a weird day or what, but like you didn't seem super like engaged in the conversation. Turns out like she was going through a breakup and like things were really hard for her. So really just kind of checking in on people goes a very long way, and just being able to like extend that hand out, it's been great. It's been a really positive thing I've kind of implemented into my life.
Yeah, thank you, Amanda. That was so perfect because when he was here, when Cliff was here, y'all, it was just different. His message to the guys that I've always been like, for a woman, always been one of the guys, and he killed it. I mean, he was just nailing it. He was straightforward. He pushed the students to take action, to make an effort to go the extra mile like Amanda did, to really it was just really helpful to see someone come to our campus and get real and practical. It was so practical. It was like, you're not the only one. He pointed to the self-efficacy, like do something. How are you dealing with your stress? And he had them talking about what they do. And a student came up to me after and was like, that was one of the best I've heard survivors talk before, but this guy's talk wasn't depressing me. It was like, it made me want to live. It made me want to find a way out of the darkness. I mean, Cliff, just hearing it again and being here, it just reminds me how fortunate I am to know you. I'm just so thankful that you invited us to this podcast tonight.
Well, yeah, go ahead, Scott.
I must say, like, your speech definitely like was motivating for sure. There's this quote that I kind of connected with your speech, and it was either one day or day one, because everyone gets, like, when they're in a bad place, everyone gets caught in a cycle of either drinking or substance abuse, whatever it is, like something that is not good for them, and it makes them feel better in a temporary moment, and then like before they know it, their life is, I don't know, in shambles, or they're in the bottom of the hole. But the one place to go in the bottom of the hole, another quote, I wasn't going to say that quote, but I'm going to say this quote now, is when you're at the bottom of the hole, the only way to look is up, which I think that's a military quote. I'm pretty sure. Also, it's not one day, but it's day one. Like that's something that's very inspiring to me. That whole idea of like, I mean, yeah, I'm in a bad place right now, but I can get better. And that's what people don't see when they're in that bad situation.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what your speech really encapsulates on, I must say.
Hope.
Well,
yeah, hope. Exactly. Hope.
Yeah. Everybody's got to have that little got to have that hope, right? You got to have it. And
Gotta have that buddy.
Gotta have some grit too.
Well, I want to thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules and joining me and Lynn here on the podcast and the audience to, kind of relive the speaking event and go over things. I don't normally watch my speaking events, so I don't like hearing myself talk, but I think a lot of speakers are like that. But I really appreciate Amanda and Scott, being that you guys were there, and the fact that I was able to touch you in different generations really means a lot to me. It means that what I'm doing or what I'm trying to do is to get people to think for that second, where I didn't, and to know that things can get better, but also have personal accountability.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I talk about is you're in your position because you chose to drink too much or you chose to do this. Now that you got good counselors there, and you can go get counseling to help you with whatever caused you to get to that point, and that's something important that a lot of people don't think about is take a little bit of personal responsibility, but then it's okay to ask for help afterwards. And I think that's very very important. I think sometimes people forget that. But as we wrap up, Lynn, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, I just want to kind of have some final thoughts. I think a big takeaway from this is that, self accountability, but in order to have that, you have to have that self awareness.
Yep.
So if you don't have that self awareness, you can't really pull yourself out,
Mhm.
right? So you get in that dark place and you spiral down, and then you finally get to that self awareness, like, hey, this is not the end of the world.
Mhm.
It can get better. So having that aha moment, definitely a big thing.
Yep.
It's a big takeaway. And having self-awareness for anybody, just being aware of your own emotions and your feelings of how certain things will trigger you, and how you can kind of like work through that. Like, you identify what triggers you, and then working through that takes a lot of self-awareness. And a lot of people need to like just step back and have patience to learn themselves again.
Yes.
And so that's a big deal. And learning yourself and finding out who you are again after certain experiences, colleges, traumatic experience, medical experiences, whatever it might be, it does take a while. It does take patience. So I think that's a huge takeaway.
Yeah.
That's
I agree.
really awesome. Go ahead, Renee.
No, I just totally agree with her, man. Like, that's the game changer.
Yeah.
Is the self-awareness.
Yeah.
As Renee said to me, the beginning of my the beginning of my freshman year, she said it's all about conscientiousness. I'll remember that throughout the time I'm here. It's about being aware of what your mental state is and how you feel, right? And I completely agree with it too.
Yeah. Well, hey, thanks everybody for tuning in. If you want to learn more about my story, I do have my book available, The Mental Health Warrior. You can get it on my website at cliffordbauman.com. Yeah, Lynn has her copies. I'm sure you guys had bought copies there too.
Go read it. It's a good book.
But yeah, you can learn more about my stories and other things. But also along with that, on the QR code up on the upper left hand of the screen with WA there, that's for Reese Across America Radio. You can scan that to donate Reese, to ensure that all those veterans out there that have passed on, that they have the Reese during the holidays. What a great program, and I'm so honored to be part of them. And also, of course, we have 4 Patriots. If you're looking for winter's coming, and so it's always good to have that supply of food, because you never know when you lose power, electricity with ice storms and snowstorms, and Lynn's out there scraping her windows in Florida.
In Florida.
Nobody ever expect that. But Lynn, why don't you tell everybody about the Veterans Trash Talk store and our merch?
Well, gee whiz, I think I want to move to Key West because I don't want to be in the cold anymore. But check out our page, www.VeteranTrashTalk.com. On there, you can find all of our podcasts and all of our merch, including that shirt that everyone likes. Don't be a triggered pansy.
That's right. That's our best-selling shirt. Hey, thanks everybody for tuning in. Have a great, wonderful week, and we'll see you next week.
Blessings, everybody. Definitely.
Thank you.
Everybody
Thank you
stay
so much
on.
for
Thanks for watching and listening. And now a word from our sponsor, 4 Patriots. In a startling description, the UN food chief warned the world with the words, knocking on famine's door. He called what we're facing a perfect storm of a perfect storm. And he's not alone. Barron's published that a food shortage could be coming, even in the U.S. Farmers see it too. John Boyd Jr., a 4th-generation farmer, told Fox News that we're going to see empty food shelves in the coming months. That's why getting survival food is more important than ever now. Create your own stockpile of the best-selling 4 Patriots survival food kits. It's not ordinary food. We're talking good for 25 years super survival food, hand-packed in a family-owned facility in the USA and giving jobs to over 200 Americans. They have different delicious breakfasts, lunches, dinners. You can make these meals in less than 20 minutes. Just add boiling water, simmer, and serve. And right now, for the next few days, listeners of the Veteran Trash Talk podcast will get 10% off their first order at 4patriots.com by using the code VTTGW. Go to 4patriots.com and use the code VTTGW to start your stockpile today.